Hello everyone and welcome back. This video contains the demonstration of neural networks. The topics to be covered are Introduction to Neural Network, Example of a Neural Network, the Perceptron model, and the activation functions. What is a neural network? Neural networks are a part of deep learning algorithms. Their name and structure are inspired by the human brain, mimicking the way that biological neurons signal to one another. This is an example of a neural network. Now, what are the components of neural network? Let us see. The input data is first given into input layer. The input layer is also known as input nodes. No computation is done here within this layer. It just passes the information to the next layer. The next layer is hidden layer. In the hidden layer, intermediate processing or computation takes place. These layers perform computations and then transfers the weights, signals or information from input layer to the next layer. The next layer could be the output layer or next layer could be another hidden layer as well. It is also possible to have a neural network without a hidden layer. Next is the output layer or output nodes. Here we finally use the activation function that maps to the desired output format. For example, softmax for classification. Also, a neural network consists of connections and weights. Connections are indicated by these directed graphs and weights are values assigned to these connections. The network consists of connection and each connection transferring the output of a neuron I to the input of a neuron J. In this sense, I is the predecessor of J and J is the successor of I. Each connection is assigned a specific weight which is denoted by Wij. Now this is an example of a neural network. It is a binary classifier. Its purpose is to determine whether the input is a cat or a dog. First, the input passes through the input layers. From input layer, it then goes through the hidden layers. And finally, it goes to the output layer, then it determines whether our output is a cat or a dog. Next is the perceptron model. It is the simplest neural network model. It is also known as the building block of an artificial neural network. It was developed by Frank Rosenblatt. It is a binary classifier which consists of three main components. These components are input nodes or input layer, weights and bias, activation function. Input nodes or input layer. It is the primary component of perceptron which accepts the initial data into the system for further processing. Each input node contains a real numerical value. Weights and bias. Weight parameter represents the strength of the connection between units. This is another important parameter of perceptron components. Weight is directly proportional to the strength of the associated input neuron in deciding the output. Further, bias can be considered as the line of intercept in a linear equation. Activation function. Activation functions are the final and important components that help us to determine whether the neuron will fire or not. Activation function can be considered primarily as a step function. Now, types of activation function. First is sigmoid function. The sigmoid function is an activation function where it scales the values between 0 and 1 by applying a threshold. Next activation function is hyperbolic tanh. The tanh function is an activation function which rescales the value between -1 and 1 by applying a threshold just like a sigmoid function. The advantage is that the values of tanh is zero-centered, which helps the next neuron during propagation. Next is rectified linear unit. This is one of the most widely used activation functions. The benefits of ReLU is the sparsity. It allows only values which are positive. Negative values are not passed, which will speed up the process and it will negate or bring down the possibility of occurrence of a dead neuron. Following is the function fx equals to 0, max. This function will allow only the maximum values to pass during the front propagation, which is shown in the graph.